All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are so excited that you are here today. And we'd love to invite you to our Facebook Live webinar with Texas Realtors Leadership. Thanks so much for joining. I am Melissa Hailey with Agent Advantage Coaching and Training. And today we're going to be talking about the hot topics for Texas Realtors in 2023. Our guests today are Marcus Phipps, the 2023 chairman of Texas Realtors, as well as Travis Kessler, the CEO of Texas Realtors. Welcome to our webinar Facebook Live, gentlemen.
Thank you, Melissa. Great to be here.
Absolutely. I'm so excited that y'all are both here today. Before we begin, I think everybody would like to just know a little bit more about each of you. If you don't mind, just sharing a bit about yourself. Marcus, I know we just had a whole write-up in Texas Realtors about you, but I would love for you to just quick share your story, and then we'll let Travis talk about his story real quick.
Sure. I'm a recovering teacher. I moved to Harlingen, Texas, where I live now, almost 31 years ago, straight out of college. I was a high school choir director. And I taught high school for 3 years, left teaching to go into full-time ministry, music and youth ministry, and got my real estate license while I was doing that to supplement my incredible church income. After about a year, I flip-flopped careers, and real estate has been my full-time career since then. I've been licensed and active since 1996. So that's 27 years in the business, and have enjoyed a successful career here in Harlingen. Enjoy doing what I do. I have a small brokerage. I have 9 agents who work with me, and they are all women. So it tends to get interesting from time to time, but I have a very friendly, family-oriented office. I have 3 boys, a wife of almost 30 years, and love to play golf, and I sing a little bit. That's about it.
You sing a little bit. I heard you sing a lot, my friend.
I sing a little bit.
Well, there you go. From your musical background. I love that. Well, thanks so much for letting everybody get to know a little bit more about you. And I know that that's important for you, because I remember when we first chatted, as you were preparing to be installed as the chairman, you said, this is the authentic me, and that's what everybody's going to get, is authentic. So I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, Travis, do you mind if folks get to know you a little bit better as well? Do you mind sharing a little bit about your story, or, what you've been doing? Because you, my friend, have some really great accolades, I just have to say. So tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you, Melissa, and thank you for having us. Marcus and I are thrilled to be part of your webinar series today. So thanks for having us. And Marcus, I think your background really prepared you well for what you're doing. So I see all the talents based on what you talked about really tie in well to the Realtor organization. Melissa, my background is a little different than Marcus. I live here in Austin, and I work at your building, our Texas Realtors building at 12th and San Jacinto. And so you can look out these windows, and you can see the state capitol on one side, and you can see my alma mater, the University of Texas, outside the other window. And so I'm a graduate of UT here in Austin, and I love Austin. And so a little unlike Marcus, I started in Realtor Association management right out of college. And so I have done nothing but work for the Realtor family, the Realtor organization, for many, many years. I've been so fortunate to be your CEO for the last 13 years here in Austin. And prior to that, I worked as the CEO for the Greater Fort Worth Association and the San Antonio Board of Realtors. And so, but I think what's unusual about my career, Melissa, is that right out of college, I started with the Texas Association of Realtors, as they were known then. And so to make a full circle all these years later to be the CEO of the organization is really a something that I'm very proud of, and could not think of a better career than working with the Realtor family, and to do it for this many years has truly been a blessing in my life. So feel very fortunate, and love the Realtor organization and the Realtor family. And as Marcus knows, and Melissa, as you know, every day, every week is a new day in the life of the Realtor organization. And so
Isn't that the truth?
we are in the midst of a legislative session, market changes, and so we look forward to giving you some updates today, because we've got a lot of information that we want to share with you this morning.
Well, very good. Well, that's what we're here for. We wanted to hear some hot topics for what's happening in Texas real estate stuff for all of 2023. And I know Texas Realtors has some really great stuff that I think is important for us to bring to all of the members that are watching today, and help them to really just be informed on what's happening in our profession. I think that's super important. So I think the first thing that I'd like to just quickly touch on is I just got back from Austin. Marcus, I know you just got home from Austin. We were there about a week or so ago for the winter meetings. So is there any kind of important updates or a recap or something that maybe the folks that are out there watching today that weren't able to attend, what would be the big news for them, something important that happened at Texas Realtors winter meeting that we need to cover?
Oh, our winter meeting was packed. We were there for 6 days. Some of us there for 6 days, some for 4 or 5. But one of the most exciting things that happened at winter meeting was we have a full leadership team again. We elected Jeff Kahn, actually moved ahead 1 year in his leadership time. He is now the chair-elect for Texas Realtors. He'll be chairman of the board in 2024. And we elected Christy Kessler from Williamson County as the secretary treasurer for 2023. And Jennifer Wahab from Houston will be our secretary treasurer in 2024. And we're super excited to have the ladies join the leadership team. And it's great to have a full 5 again. We've been short for quite some time. So it's great to have 2 more wonderful minds to help explore the different things that we talk about, and we talk a lot, but we needed that extra input, and we're super happy to have them along. We had some incredible forums and panels throughout the course of the week. Our public policy forum that featured 3 of our governmental affairs staff was just eye-opening, as people got to understand the process by which we get to our public policy priorities for the year and the legislative session that we're currently in. And then to have them expound on some of those policies and what we're looking forward to in the legislature this year. That was one of our great sessions. We had Congressman Will Hurd talk about what was the word, Travis, that he used, the something majority, exhausted majority, I believe is what he called it.
Yeah.
Where people just, everyone is really on the same page as far as most things are concerned. And if we could find that common middle ground and just look to agree instead of disagree on everything, we could really get a lot of things accomplished. And we definitely seek to do that for Texas Realtors. Just if we could get our congressional bodies to align that way as well. Travis, what other highlights do you have from the winter meeting?
Marcus, you said it well, and to have a full leadership team again is a blessing for Texas Realtors. But a couple of things stand out for me that during this past week that we had for this meeting in Austin. And number one, from North Texas, from Arlington, Joanne Justice was recognized as our Texas Realtor of the Year. Joanne has been a realtor for almost 50 years and has made just an immeasurable amount of contributions and has added to the success of our industry and our profession. So it was really nice to recognize and honor one of our own, Joanne Justice from Arlington, Texas, as our Texas Realtor of the Year. But Marcus, I think the second thing that was a good takeaway from me, and I really like what our members gave us for input on doing an opening session that was just full of substantive discussion on housing affordability, not affordable housing, but housing affordability trends from the Swanepoel report of T360. So we had a lot of good information to start us out. But one thing, Marcus, that I think is a takeaway for me, based on the week's worth of presentations, we had a lot of risk reduction panel information that talked about some of the legalities that are occurring in our industry. And I want to highlight just five areas that, Melissa, I think were key areas of part of the presentations that our members heard throughout the week. And it deals with errors and omissions insurance claims. And it was done on a risk reduction forum that we had with several of our partners that helped us with errors and omissions insurance. And what they told us is that realtors are more susceptible right now because of our changing economic climate that we had. For the last couple of years, Melissa and Marcus, we were, had record numbers of sales. And anytime you have record numbers of sales like that, you're probably going to have a little more litigation that's happening in the industry.
Sure.
So a couple of the things that they highlighted in this presentation were here were the most common claims on either settlements or errors and omissions insurance claims. And those top five were: number one, failure to disclose. And, we've seen that, we've heard that. And, it has to do with the physical condition of the property. And, what's interesting about why this was number one is that there were a lot of sight unseen purchases during the pandemic. And so we looked at that, and it's just failure to disclose was kind of what we're now 2 years later working on and experiencing through either settlements or litigation. The second one, and I considered this one as part of the pandemic, and that is the number of claims and settlements that deal with valuation. And valuation is, what is my property worth? And as you know, during the pandemic, buyers were buying property that were waiving inspections, waiving appraisals. And so now there is an increased litigation and settlement based on maybe I paid too much for that property, and now they're not happy, they're unsatisfied, dissatisfied with the process. Yeah. And we see increasing claims on value of a property, valuation. The third one, and this is not new at all, we hear this pretty often, and that is agents acting outside the scope of their representation. And we as an industry try to please everybody. We try to work and try to keep a deal together, keep the transaction together. But sometimes it works against us because if agents are out performing outside of the scope of their representation, that is number three on the number of claims that were brought out in risk reduction during the meetings this week. And number four is not surprising either: property management claims. We deal with that a lot. And that number has not changed. The ranking of where it falls in risk reduction is not different, but it just has to do with, again, acting outside of the scope of your competency when it deals with property management. So if you're not trained to do property management, you don't work in property management, understand fair housing, assistance animals, and handling of deposits for other people, those are the areas of what we heard during the week of numbers of claims that are in the property management side. And the newest one that I heard during this meeting that is a little different, Melissa, is subpoena claims. And those are on a rise. And what it is, that means that when a realtor is subpoenaed for more information due to a litigation, a lawsuit, or even a possibility of a settlement, we tend to give too much information. And when you give too much information, it rises to the claim of, well, now that we know that, we're going to increase the claim because you've given us information that we didn't have and didn't know. And so sometimes we're our own worst enemy in just giving too much information outside of the scope of what has been asked of us when it involves errors and omissions insurance, lawsuits, and settlements. And so, Melissa, that was my takeaway from this week's session, all dealing with the legalities of our business and risk reduction.
Yeah, and that's important stuff too. And I don't know who got to pick the speakers for all of the things, but William Hurd was really great. I know Marcus mentioned his, but the coffee bean.
Oh, yeah.
I missed that one because I had another meeting, but everybody was just telling me how great that speaker was. So, we had really, really great folks coming to speak and bring value. And I think that's an important fact for people to know, is that anytime you can come to a Texas Realtors winter meeting or the conference that's coming up later this year. I know we're going to talk about that towards the end of our day today, but come and participate. If you don't come, you should totally come, because there's such great information. And all of these things that we're talking about just right here were things that we covered a week ago in Austin. So super appreciate it. You know what else too, Travis, before we move on to another topic, is you mentioned Joanne Justice winning an award, but I have to say another place that won an award, and they're in my region, in Region 4, is the Lehman Award went to the Greater Texoma Board of Realtors. And I thought that was really awesome. And it was nice to see Mark there at the conference and able to present the award. So that was really great.
Very nice. Good accolades for Greater Texoma. Absolutely.
And Melissa, something about that, oftentimes smaller boards get discouraged that they can't win awards because they don't have the huge areas and the resources and such to invest in their governmental affairs activities. But this just goes to show smaller boards are definitely going to be considered when they apply. And all you have to do is, if you do something really, really worthwhile within your governmental affairs efforts, apply for the award, and you'll get your efforts recognized. It's not just about our largest boards who do that. Nothing to take away from the large boards with the Collin counties, the Metro Texas, and a lot of your audience there. But we do, our small boards do a lot of really good work, and we love to be able to recognize that.
Absolutely, 100%. And Greater Texoma does a really great job, and they were well deserving. So super excited for them. Well, since we're talking about governmental affairs a little bit here, let's talk about what's going on. It's a legislative year, and we know that that's a really big deal, and that lots of times bills come up that have an impact on housing, have an impact on us as small business owners. What's happening in the legislative session that we need to be keeping an eye on right now?
Travis, you want to roll first on that one?
Alyssa and Marcus, we could probably talk about this one all morning long, because we are just now in the beginning throes of our legislative session right across the street here in Austin. And so let me just give a quick overview of where we are. And then Marcus, if you want to focus on a couple of the Realtor Association, Texas Realtors supported or opposition to some of the bills that have been filed. It's really interesting, as we look at the legislative session, and Melissa, the 88th legislative session convened on January the 10th. So it hasn't been in place. We're in our first 30 days that we've got with session. And so just looking at the makeup of the legislature right now, we've got 5 new senators, and we have 27 new House members. And so if you look at that, in the House, 64 of the 150 members have been there 3 or fewer terms. And so what that tells me is that we're dealing with a new Texas legislature. And so you've got a lot of new elected officials, and that's what we take a lot of pride in, is cultivating those relationships so that we can be and have a seat at the table for those discussions. But when you have that many new House members and Senate members, it's like cultivating a whole new relationship. But we had our public policy positions that we worked on all of last year. And as we look at some of the things that are important on what we do, we always focus on property taxes, infrastructure spending, our continued HOA reform legislation that maybe Marcus will highlight a little bit more of that. But we try to do a proactive legislative agenda in preparation for the session that we have for 140 days that we have. But one of the things that I think is extremely important is that during this first period of time, the legislature has only one task to do in 140 days, and that is to pass a biennium budget. And so they are looking at that, and we're very fortunate in Texas with the economic growth that we've had, job growth that we've had. People want to move and live in Texas. Our sales tax revenue boosted extra income to the state of Texas to the tune of $32 billion of extra excess money that the legislature can work with. So they are wanting to spend some of that money. And so we're in our first stage of bill filing. And I'll tell you, 4,000 bills have already been filed in this first 30-day period. So our team has been busy reading every bill that comes out to look at what impacts real estate, what impacts our industry. And so we're already following some of the bills, and some that we are supportive of and some that we are not. And so we are actively reading and researching all of that. But bill filing closes on March the 10th. So we will know and have everything in less than a month on what the biggest issues may be. But Melissa and Marcus, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the governor. And during this period of time, during bill filing, when you really can't have committee hearings, when no action can take place, the governor can expedite what's called emergency items during the first 60 days of session. And so, as we probably heard, many of you on this webinar today probably heard the governor speak just last week. And I want to just quickly outline what his 7 initiatives and priorities are for what they can act upon and not have to wait until they go through the entire process. And these are called emergency legislative items that can be processed in the first 60 days of our legislative session. Number 1 is very dear to our heart, and it was the governor's priority item number 1, and that is cutting taxes, cutting property taxes. And so that's a big one for us. It's a big issue for you as our industry of Texas Realtors. It is the number 1 item. And the governor is working with 2 senators, Huffman and Bonin, and they are proposing using $15 billion of that $32 billion surplus to cut property taxes. And so that is a big one for us. And we're looking at the lieutenant governor also expressing that he would like to see the homestead exemption be brought down to a $70,000 instead of a $40,000 homestead exemption. So increasing that, probably cost 12 to $15 billion of that surplus. So, but that is the governor's number 1 issue that he would like to see addressed in these first 60 days of the legislative session. The other one, and in your area, you all have been hearing this in the Dallas-Fort Worth area about COVID restrictions. And in Dallas County, you're still dealing with county and city rules on evictions that deal with the pandemic and with COVID restrictions. And so number 2, the governor wants to have an emergency item that will bring an end to all of the remaining COVID restrictions throughout the state for consistency, so that there will not be city and county differences on how they're interpreting COVID restrictions, and especially as they relate to pandemic related issues like evictions. And so, so our number 1 and number 2 that the governor has are right on our list of things that are our public policy positions that tie in quite nicely. Number 3 is education. And Abbott's 3rd emergency item includes expanding school choice. And so that would be through an education savings account, but that is his number 3. Number 4 is no surprise to any of us, and that is school safety, especially after what happened in Uvalde, Texas. He put that on his priority list to look at what the state of Texas can do to strengthen the safety in our schools. And so he is proposing use of dollars out of that surplus to look at technology upgrades, equipment, and expanding mental health resources that we have surrounding disasters like that under school safety. And number 5 does not pertain as much to our public policy positions, but his number 5 issue was ending the revolving door on bail, to where you've got repeat offenders, repeat criminals coming back into the system time and time again. And he wants to shut down that revolving door and hold judges accountable for releases when they were not appropriate or needed by continued investigations and bail releases from some of those that have been imprisoned. And number 6 is again, no surprise, because you read about it in the media every day, and that's item number 6 for him is to continue with building on the efforts to strengthen the border. And so his border security is still one of his top priorities for this first 60 days. And then the last one is fighting the fentanyl crisis that we have in Texas. And so he would like emergency item number 7 to link some of the crisis that we're having with fentanyl and releases and hold those who are distributors of that drug more responsible and accountable under enforcement. So if we look at that, Melissa and Marcus, those are kind of what I would consider in this next 30-day period that the governor will try to enact legislation and try to focus on those 7 items. So Marcus, then how does that relate if we took those 7 items and then we look at where we are from the Texas Realtor position? Would you highlight some of the bills that we're following and some of our public policy positions?
Sure. Of course, property tax reform is always at the top of our list for legislative priorities for any session. We do have a continuation, hopefully, of our homeowners association reform that we saw in the 21 session in the 87th legislature. Our hope with this is to clean up some of the things that we left undone in the first one, and also bring several enhancements to condo associations and perhaps some of the smaller homeowners associations, property owners associations, because it's 60 or more units is the threshold for some of these things. We're looking to get it to be more inclusive and just enhance what we did in 21. Also, extraterritorial jurisdiction restrictions and the ability to get things moving more effectively in the extraterritorial jurisdictions of cities. Oftentimes developers and such will hit roadblocks in those areas, and we can't get the development we need. And you take this and combine it with our efforts to increase housing affordability, housing availability, period, but housing affordability in Texas, utilizing the areas, many of which are entrapped in the extraterritorial jurisdictions, just getting some of those restrictions released so that we can move forward. And we had a really good conversation with the governor about that, and he was excited. He said, "Bring it to me. Let's get this moving." So we're hopeful we can see some inroads there as well. Again, property tax reform always at the top of our list, and then infrastructure is something, because as we know, thousands of people move to Texas every day, and without proper homes for one, but roads, water availability, electricity availability, gas availability, and then the last one that people don't often think about is internet. As we move out into the further reaches of the counties and to get into the rural areas of Texas, a lot of people don't have internet, and they can't be with you and me today on Zoom. We need to be able to continue to expand that. There was a bill in the last session that created the Office of Internet Accessibility Development or something like that, with some significant seed money to get that going. And the pandemic really made that apparent to all legislators that people do need the ability to connect via internet to do what they need to do. We also have a bill that we will be introducing and supporting regarding the Real Estate Commission. We got some cleanup stuff to do there. As we know, flood disclosure, especially with rental properties, came in really, really hard in the 21 session, and we have some cleanup to do with that. One particular example is a high rise in Austin where someone has a rental unit. If they're on the 50th floor of a building, they probably don't need to know whether or not the property is flooded before or not. So that's just one of the items that's considered. Another one along that same line is if you do a seller lease back on a property, the new property owner is disclosing to the person who's lived there for the last however many years whether or not the property has flooded. We don't necessarily need to be disclosing to a property owner that previous property owner whether the property's been flooded or not. That's another example of that, and some other things that we need to do with the Real Estate Commission to ensure the continuance of the other operating entities that they work with. And then, we lay all these things out. We lay out our perfect priorities through a wonderful process that's over 18 months in preparation before we get to the session. And then we have these little things that we call our reaction bills. And a few of our legislators in this session have introduced what we're referring to as the foreign buyers bills. So foreign buyers of real estate, not necessarily American citizens, in the interest of national security. We're seeing some of these bills filed that would prevent foreign entities and foreign, even individuals in some cases, from buying property in Texas. And we are working to oppose these these proposed bills. There's work to be done. And as Travis said, nothing even goes to committee until March 10th. The only things that we can consider at this point in time that the members can consider are the governor's and lieutenant governor's priorities. And so these aren't going to see any real action before March 10th, but we are working the problem. This is something, again, that I said we react to. We continue to be proactive with the priorities that we brought forward at the beginning of the session, and then we react to these. But any questions that anyone has about that can be directed to our governmental affairs staff, but know that we do oppose the foreign buyers bills, especially related to individuals. We're going to work to get those problems fixed.
Yeah.
And Marcus, that's an important one because, while we support a lot of public policy positions, as effectively, we look at what we do not want to have enacted. And so working in opposition to potentially get some bills either modified or defeated. A lot of them, as Marcus said, we're in the capability side of having a seat at the table to where we can be part of a solution as opposed to just drawing a line in the sand. But the bills that Marcus is referring to, there are 2 in the House and 2 in the Senate. And so those, while they were not on our radar during public policy development, they are on the radar now. And so we'll have that. And Marcus, one other bill I think that's important for us to note for the audience today, and that is on public improvement districts, what we call PIDs. And that is one that, because we have liability if we don't disclose, that the restrictions and the consequences for lack of disclosure are pretty high. And so we have potentially a bill that is a good cleanup bill that puts the source of some of this information. We get calls on our legal hotline frequently of realtors and consumers not understanding where to get PID information, PID information, because there is not one central location to go get it. And so when there's not one central location to obtain that, then there is risk of not getting it correctly or overlooking it, and then having the unintended consequences. So there is one potential solution, and that is to work with appraisal districts to identify which properties have an improvement district so that there's one source, one place to go so that we don't overlook the importance of it. So those are just, Melissa and Marcus, a few of the changes and some of the things that we are focusing on today across the street with where we have in month 1 of our legislative session. But Marcus, let's talk a little bit about leading up to March the 22nd. That is going to be Realtor Day at the Capitol, and it is our Riding with the Brand. Riding with the Brand is let's promote the Realtor brand to consumers and what we do to advocate for consumers. And so a very important date that I think and hope that everyone listening on the webinar today will mark on your calendars to come to Austin, Texas, our building, your building, at 12th and San Jacinto on March the 22nd. We expect between 3,000 and 5,000 realtors to come to the state capitol for a rally. And so we will have a full house. And what's interesting, Melissa, about this is that while we have and will have contact teams to meet with every legislator across the street, having advocacy is so important. It's called grassroots influence, and that's what we excel at. With 150,000 Texas realtors, you are our biggest strength. We can have the best lobby team in the country, but the elected officials will listen to constituents, and you are the constituents in any of our local markets. And so we need you. We need you to come to Austin on March the 22nd to be part of our teams that go across the street and go through what we'll prepare in this next 30-day period, talking points on the bills that Marcus just outlined, and so that we have consistency in our messaging. But it makes such a difference in the success of what we find legislatively to have that level of input from our Texas Realtor members, and to have that input to our elected officials. And I'll say this, Melissa, and Marcus has heard me say this over and over, and that is when we bring 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 members into Austin for the day, 50% of our members have never been to the state capitol, and 50% have never been to the Texas Realtors building right across the street from the state capitol. So we encourage everybody to come view and look at your open house at our building. come across the street to the state capitol and meet with our elected officials and just be part of a solution. We know we can complain all day long about bills that are occurring and complain every day about what did or didn't happen across the street. But that's why we need the support of our Texas Realtor members to make a difference with the knowledge, the relationships that you have with elected officials. So I won't say any more about that, but March 22nd, it's an all-day event. So Marcus, you want to elaborate a little bit on your thoughts as our chairman of the board of getting members to support Realtor Day at the Capitol?
Well, you probably saw my 10,000 fingers coming up. We would love to see you there. And if you have not yet already made arrangements to come on March 22nd to Texas Realtor Day at the Texas Capitol, please do contact your local association office, because they probably have an empty seat on a bus. And you can get on that seat, get down here to the Capitol. You can have some great barbecue, but as Travis said, it's not that we could have the greatest, we do have the greatest lobby team in the state of Texas, and I would put them up against anyone in the nation. But when our members come out with the voice of 5,000, and you as your local legislators constituent walk into that office and talk about these legislative issues and the priorities that we have, it makes a difference. They want to hear from you, the people who elect them. So make plans to get out there on March 22nd. We are going to convene at 9:30 on the south lawn of the Capitol. It's our big rally to kick off our advocacy day at the Capitol, but also it's our Riding with the Brand and day with the National Association of Realtors. Kenny Parcell, the president of NAR, Tracy Casper, vice president or president-elect of NAR, and Leslie Ruda Smith, the 2022 president of NAR, and our own Cindy Bulla, regional vice president for Region 10 of the National Association of Realtors, will be there presenting, talking to us, getting us excited about the brand that we represent with the National Association, but also about the advocacy that we'll be taking on that day. So 9:30 on the South Lawn. Make sure you're there on time, fired up, and ready to go. Ben would kill me if I did not say, if you don't have your purple Converse tennis shoes yet, get them. We are the purple solution. It's not a red problem. It's not a blue problem. We are the purple solution. And get yourself a pair of purple Converse tennis shoes and wear them to the Capitol that day as we walk proudly as the purple solution going through the Capitol. Again, contact your local association for details. They probably have room on a bus or are making other arrangements. Many fly in and spend the night. Great opportunity to get together and spend some time together. Travis mentioned briefly come over to the building, but do come to the Texas Realtors building. This is your building. You, as a member of the Texas Association of Realtors, have an ownership stake in this building. You will see our brand new illuminated 4-foot tall Texas Realtors logos on the sides of the building facing the Capitol and facing north towards the University of Texas. So you see those, you can't miss them, especially at night because they're lit. We're super excited about the branding that now is a permanent part of our beautiful facility there at the corner of 12th and San Jacinto. And we'll give you a barbecue lunch just for showing up. And you can't see it where Travis is sitting with his camera right now, but just to his right is the Capitol building. If you look out those windows, you have a beautiful view of the Capitol, and we'll be taking pictures in there for you so you can go in and enjoy that and see just what presence we have at the Texas Capitol. As Travis said, 50% of our people who come have never been to the Capitol, but they've also never been to our building. It is your building, so get in there and take a look. It's truly a fabulous facility. Super proud.
Agreed. Yep. I love it. And I love that not only did we bring information to the people today that are watching about things that are important, right? Like the things that they agree with, the property tax reform and so forth, the things that we oppose with maybe discouraging or disallowing certain people from purchasing real property, which, we fight for everybody to own real property. But I love it that we said, okay, and here's how you can get involved too. Because it's one thing to just know the information, but it's another thing to just suit up and show up on March 22nd, just be there, right?
Right. And Melissa, one thing about that, as we stated, it's not time for action on these items yet. And there are a lot of people who are really, really passionate about these foreign buyers bills and our opposition to them. if there does come a point in time when action is needed other than Realtor Day, we will issue a member-wide call for action, and you will have the opportunity to hit 2 clicks and let your legislator know, say no to this, or you say yes to this. But if it's time, our members will know it's time to take action.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we should be participants in our profession for sure, not just buying and selling houses, but participating in things that affect all of the folks that we work with.
That's right.
Love it. All right. Well, so we've talked a lot about legislative stuff. We talked about some ways they can get involved, coming to Realtor Day at the Capitol or participating in a call to action. Let's talk about a couple of other things that are going on, because I think that one of the things that people really probably would like some information on is what is happening in the market. And I know Texas Realtors has a really great resource with the market viewer. And I think it's probably important to kind of tie that into what's happening in the real estate market right now, that things have really made some significant changes in the last 6 or 8 months from where we were, like what Travis was talking about with risk reduction, where people were buying them sight unseen for thousands of dollars above the appraised value, to where we are today. Tell me a little bit about Market Viewer, and why would somebody want to use that, and what kind of information might they find in the Market Viewer?
Oh, so Angela or Maria, if you have access to the statewide 22 performance slide, that's a fabulous example of what Market Viewer does. But Market Viewer is a tool, a resource that is provided to you as a member benefit, and it is one of the most powerful tools that you have in your toolkit. Gives you instant access to quarterly stats, monthly stats, year-over-year stats for your market. And some of the information that we shared at winter meeting was a 2022 snapshot year over year from 2021. Something that you just mentioned, prices continue to go up. In 2022, we saw a 13.3% price increase year over year. That was down. The price increase was down from 2021, because in 2021, that statewide stat, I want to say, was just over 20% median price increase. So if you put those 2 years together, 33% price increase year over year, or 2 years over 2 years. The number that most of us are seeing that has us scared is that closed sales are down. They were down 11.4% in 2022, closing 367,142 residential sides for a gross total of 151 billion, 881 million, almost 882 million thousand dollars in sales. The gross dollar figure was down just a touch. It was just under 2% less than the total dollars sold in 2021. But it was still, Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was the second highest year in gross dollar volume and the third highest year in closed sales in history. So it's not like the sky is falling. It's just that things are leveling out more to what we would consider to be a normal market. We still have 2.7 months of inventory at the end of the year statewide. We know that number is up. It was less than a month in 2021, getting it closer to 3. We know that balance point is 6 months, so that it's no longer a buyer's market, no longer a seller's market. 6 months is a balanced inventory. But I think that we're finding that 3 months is healthy. For the most part, statewide, people have choices. They don't have to rush to buy. They don't have to buy over. And speaking of which, that price or the list to sales price ratio has just come down to 98.7%. That was over 100% statewide in 2021. So it's nice to see that. And then your days on the market, 35 days. So it's not like list your house and move tomorrow. It's we can relax and breathe a little bit through this process. But Travis, we have some other great information about market stats.
Yeah, we really do. And Melissa, if we look at where we ended in 2022 and then kind of what to look for in 2023, let me just reinforce what Marcus was saying, because 2020 and 2021 were record years of Texas real estate in numbers of sales and in dollar volume. I mean, just an amazing 2 years during the pandemic. And part of that was because the governor made us an essential business activity, so we could still conduct business, real estate business. And so during the pandemic, when we reached our two highest years of statistics during a pandemic is pretty remarkable on the strength of our economy and the strength of the real estate industry as a whole. But as we look at it, at the end of 2022, we started seeing the effects of increased interest rates. And so, as you all know, and you deal with it every day, they peaked at almost, or some of them at 7%. And so that certainly impacts affordability. It impacts what we consider even entry level affordability for practitioners and for consumers getting into housing. And so if we look at this, one of the things, and I'll share with you what I pulled from Market Viewer, and that is the importance of new home construction in Texas. If we look at what we have in Texas, 139,000 sales were new home construction out of, Marcus, what did you say, 367,000 total sales. That if you look at almost 140,000 were new construction, of which 50% of those were in the MLS. New home construction was very popular in 2022. I mean, those are huge numbers. But if we look at the biggest percentage of change that we had in 22 compared to previous years, was where in price distribution our market statistics fall. And for example, the biggest price distribution area in Texas as a whole fell within the $300,000 to $500,000 price range. I mean, that's the bulk of Texas in general. But in particular, I'm going to give the Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, because Melissa, that's where you're from, the highest percentage. 46% of all sales were in $300,000 to $500,000 in that range. So that is the market. If you look at the bulk of that 367,000 transactions that occurred in our state. But one of the changes that we're seeing is in the upper end market. Texas has always been deemed affordable. But as we see these price increases, I'm not sure that we can boast that we are one of the most affordable states, because our prices have gone up considerably. But if you look at statewide, the over $750,000 price distribution went up to 8%. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a big, big difference. And if we look at that over $750,000 market in the Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington area, it's 11%. So we look at what we call luxury housing. It used to be a very small percentage of the overall transactions, but now we're getting into most of our urban areas. Those are now double-digit percentages. And so we see the strength of that luxury market coming back into play again. And if we look at it, we used to say that over $1 million was our luxury housing market in Texas. And I think we've all experienced that that's no longer what we would deem the luxury market. If you took all of that upper end, and I'm going to use Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington as an example of 11%, the median luxury price was $1.3 million. So it has gone up and up and up within that. So we're going to have to adjust our price distribution grids on this, because we've lost that entry level portion of what's available in the housing stock. And I want to say that because, Marcus, I think if I look and analyze some of our market statistics using Market Viewer, we see the share of first-time home buyers decreasing. And that's not a surprising statement. The share has dropped to a low of 26% as first-time home buyers. And that's because of affordability. Yeah. We've been as high as 36% in past years of first-time home buyers. And so that's why we always boasted that we were at a very affordable state. But when that dropped 10 percentage points from 36 to 26%, it's something that, Melissa, we have to follow the numbers. And so we're looking at that one very closely. We also know it's taking longer for somebody to get into affordable housing and to get into that first-time ownership. The first-time homebuyer age rose to age 36. So that means they're staying at home longer. They're staying in rentals longer while they're saving to be able to afford property. And so we're following that entry level quite closely to look at it. But Marcus, one of the things that I noticed in what we found in looking at Market Viewer is where the purchases are occurring. And if we look at it, I always had this rule of thumb that most consumers want to live within 15 miles of where they work. And so that's been the rule of thumb for what we've studied and followed in our market statistics for years. And so if we look now that during the pandemic and now the effects of after the pandemic, we still are a hybrid, a remote work environment. And so it gives workers and homeowners, property owners, a lot more flexibility that 15 miles is no longer the requirement or the average of commute time to come to work. So we're finding that number from what we can see in home buyer, home seller profiles, that number has gone up to 50 miles instead of 15 miles. So do you think that impacts urban? Do you think it impacts suburban? It's something that we've got to follow pretty closely, but all of that is in relationship to where we are. But the outlier in all of this is what has been the biggest impact on where we are in Texas, and that is interest rates. When it peaked at 7%, we saw 29% fewer mortgage applications in our state. I mean, almost 30% fewer applications just because of interest rates. It also meant that's where that 50-mile radius became more popular because of affordability out of a center city, that the further out you go, maybe the more affordable the housing may be. And so interest rates drove that need down to what was called affordability. So if I could afford $500,000, now I may have to go down to $450,000 because of interest rates. And so it does impact where home buyers are looking to buy their property. But what's interesting in all of this, and Marcus, you said it well, if we look at market viewer statistics, the importance of the numbers, but also price appreciation. And so even though our numbers of sales may be down, that price appreciation still continues to go up and up and up. And if we look at that in the first 2 months of 2022, we saw 22% of listings statewide had a price cut. And so we're watching this one pretty closely because while we look at our average homes and if we look at the average home sold in 2022, they were at 98.7% of the price of the original list price. But when we see 22% of listings already having a price cut, it's something that we're having to monitor very closely. But we had job growth, we had population growth, and we live and work in a state where people want to live. One thing that is our crown jewel is that we added 650,000 jobs in 2022. So the economy drives real estate. And so if you've got that kind of increase in the number of jobs that are occurring in Texas, we rank right at the top in the country for where people want to live and work. That's a 5% growth rate in jobs in Texas. And that is a driver of our economy. We also had 470,000 people move to Texas during this past year. 470,000 people moved to Texas. That's a lot of real estate to look at when you have that kind of movement. And so now we exceed 30 million people in the Texas population, only surpassed by California. California and Texas are the only two states in the country that exceed 30 million in our population. But we are watching this closely because Melissa, we see the strength of new home construction. We see that it now takes 2 years for a developer and a builder to buy the land, to get it developed, get the permits to get the infrastructure in. And we don't have 2 years to sit and wait for new construction and new development. But it is a big issue when you look at the popularity of new construction, when it represents the percentage and the high percentage of our sales occurring. We need to work closely and know what builders and developers are doing. And so some of the things that have changed and one of the factors that we're seeing is some of the large home builders, production builders, are building rental communities. So they're building subdivisions that are 100% rental investments for it. And I say that because Lennar is doing it, and then kind of just around the state, we have it occurring in Austin. I see it occurring in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yeah.
I even see it in Denton as we look at what these are build to rent subdivisions that are occurring. And we're seeing more and more of what competes for that entry level purchase, because it takes it off the market for sale and makes it a rental. And so we're watching that trend pretty closely, Melissa and Marcus, on what we're doing and following with what we would call new home construction and build to rent as an option. So something that we're certainly drilling down into to follow more statistics on that.
Absolutely. And I was thinking that as you were talking about, you were looking at the market viewer and saying, here's what our price points are, and people are having to go farther out. And earlier, Marcus was talking about, the ETJ and the extraterritorial districts and what we need to bring to them infrastructure wise. And of course, that's where these buildings are going to go. These homes are going to go. And that's important for us to keep in mind. But I especially love it that you brought up the fact that we're watching as an association. I love it that we're watching what's going on and keeping our eye on what's happening with build to rent, because that will make an impact on future sales. And as that development happens, we're looking for development that we can sell, because, under all is the land, right? Like our code of ethics says, and it says it relies on the widest distribution of ownership for us to have thriving cities and communities. So I know it's important. And I know that as the leadership team, I'm just glad and I'm thankful that you guys are keeping your eye on that for sure.
And it's all related. That's all of those things come together to create the chaos that is our housing market. And the one thing that struck me in some of our trends reports that we've seen recently is the age of the average first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
And it's now 36. And that, to me, that's just astounding. I bought my first house at 23. Cannot imagine 13 years down the road and the loss of wealth that comes from owning property over a period of 13 years. Really, really hurting our younger people. So if you're, for the audience that's listening, if you're targeting tenants in young areas, they may not really be your target audience anymore. You may be wanting to direct your attention more towards in a more mature community, get away from the universities a little bit, and find those more mature possible first-time home buyer clients.
Right. Or as we work on housing affordability, that was one of the things that we talked about as we work on that, and keeping the interest rates in mind and home prices in mind, and how that affects, the job growth that we're having. We need to have the income growth to go with it.
Yep.
Otherwise, then people can't afford. So
Right.
Yeah, all of these things, they feel like and seem like really big concepts that may not have anything to do with buying that house with that one client. But really, I like what you said. It's just all intertwined.
Yep, it is.
All right. Well, I know we are gearing up to be out of time in just a moment, but I would like real quick to just get some information to everybody, because we said at the very beginning, here's some ways you can get involved. Is come to the winter meeting, or of course, now we know they can come to the Realtor Day at the Capitol on March 22nd, but there's a big conference coming up later this year. Is it in San Antonio this year? It is, right? I love going to the Riverwalk. So it's a great time to come. Tell us a little bit about conference, when it is, and where they can get more information. And then we're going to get us wrapped up today.
That conference is in San Antonio. It's September 7th through the 10th, right on the Riverwalk. The main hotel is the Grand Hyatt, which is right on the Riverwalk, right next to the convention center. Great opportunity to get down and enjoy beautiful San Antonio. We will have, of course, tons of CE. That's what we do really, really well at conference. In addition to our installation of officers, Jeff Kahn will have his chairman installation. That'll be a great time for him and for our members to celebrate Jeff and the rest of the leadership team. So we look forward to that for sure. But in addition to our annual conference, don't overlook your local 360 Texas Realtors 360 insights. We come to you, so wherever you are in the state, we won't be far away. The one that we have in the Metroplex, so that's regions 3, 4, and 12, everything within the Dallas-Fort Worth area, is April 11th, and that is going to be at the new MetroTex Association of Realtors building. It's a beautiful building with a huge conference room, and we're going to be able to fit in there. So mark your calendar for April 11th and contact your local association for registration information for that. It should be available very, very soon. We come to you with lots of information just like this one, so don't hesitate to take the advantage of take advantage of that opportunity and come see us, because it's a much smaller group than we have at conference. You really get the opportunity to interact with your leadership team in a smaller environment and even have some good one-on-one time. We love coming to you, so don't overlook that. Travis, anything else about conference?
Yeah, Marcus, I'll wrap up with 2 statements on that, and we would love to have everybody at the September conference. William McRaven will be the Admiral, will be speaking as our opening session keynote speaker. If you've never heard him speak, it's a wonderful opportunity, great experience. Former Chancellor of the University of Texas at Austin, and wrote a wonderful book on leadership and resilience. And so I think everyone will enjoy hearing him and being part of our opening session keynote presentation. And the second thing, Marcus, you said it well, on the importance of involvement and engagement to come to a regional meeting. If you liked any of these details that Marcus and I were sharing with you this morning, there's a lot more where that came from. We could take and drill down on any of these subjects, including one that we didn't get to, Melissa, on property management and the EPA requirements for certification renovations done in a property. We'll talk about that at regional meetings, but Marcus, you said it well. We just want you to come. We want you to attend a regional meeting. We come to you, we come to your area across the state, and we drill down into a lot of subjects. I know we just did kind of high level discussions in this last hour, but we really do drill down into almost everything that you heard today as part of that regional meeting series. So look at the calendar, register. We come to see you, and we want to be in your home territory to give you that information to increase and enhance our relationship between you and Texas Realtors, but to also be that conduit of information from Texas Realtors to you to enhance your success in this industry. So Melissa, Marcus, and team, thank you for having us and being part of that. Lots of good information, and there's a lot more where this came from.
Absolutely, 100%. And I do agree, coming to the regional meetings is great. If you can't come to San Antonio, you can certainly come to somewhere that's more local to you to get more information. All right, well, I am going to put some contact information here up on the screen in case anyone needs to reach out and connect with anyone. I want them to be able to have this information. But I really, really just want to thank you both so much for taking some time out of your busy day today. I know how busy everybody is, but especially the two of you just leading our state as we move forward. So I greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll do this again and bring more information back to the folks as often as we can. We can do this. We can do the conference in San Antonio. We can do the regional meetings, but getting plugged in, I think, is the message for everybody today, is just connect and get plugged in. So thank you guys both. Thank you very, very much for your time.
You bet. Our
Thanks
pleasure.
for having us.
Absolutely. Y'all have a great afternoon.
You too, Melissa. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.